are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. So, tariffs. It's everywhere at the moment. Fucking tariffs. Let me tell you what a tariff is. A tariff is an importation tax. It sounds cool when you call it a tariff, and you're like, yeah, fuck the Chinese, fuck the Mexicans, fuck Canada. They'll pay the tariffs. But really, it's an importation tax. It's just another tax they're trying to disguise. Much like inflation. Inflation is basically a tax on savings and wages. Tariffs are a tax on importation. Now, tariffs sound amazing. Honestly, everything Trump says sounds amazing. He even says it's amazing. Everything's amazing. But tariffs are not so amazing. They're not that amazing. Tariffs are basically protectionist. So you use tariffs generally to protect an industry. So if your industry, your internal industry of whatever fucking thing you're doing, let's say oil or cars or whatever, can't really compete with overseas industries of the same sort, then usually that industry gets together and lobbies the government to put tariffs on overseas products so their businesses don't get undercut. But even that sounds good, but it isn't. What protectionism is, it's for the corporations. It's not for the consumer, the people, you, me. It's not for the poor. The protection isn't for you. The protection is for the corporations. It just takes away the competition so they don't have to compete in the open market and they can keep their prices artificially high. And who gets fucked? The consumer, you. I'll give you a real world current example of tariff protectionism. So in Australia, there is a Chinese competitor to Tesla, which you don't have in America. This Chinese electric car company is called BYD, Build Your Dreams. It actually sells more electric cars than Tesla, but you can't buy them in the US because what happened is the government, and it was actually Biden, I think originally Trump put a fucking tariff on it, but then Biden upped the ante, and now it's around about 30% tariff on these BYD electric cars. I'll just throw in there that these are the main competitor to Teslas, Elon Musk. We'll just throw it out there. But to import these BYDs into America costs 30% more, so they don't do it. It's economically not viable. So they can't compete with Tesla with that 30% tariff. Anyway, in Australia, BYD is here and it does compete with Tesla. And there's no tariff. It's just an even playing field. And what happened was when BYD entered the Australian market, they, for pretty much the same car as Tesla, they were like $20,000 cheaper. You can buy one brand new for like $35,000 here. That's Australian dollars, which ends up being like 24,000 or something US dollars. Maybe it's a little bit more. Maybe it's like 40,000. But anyway, they came in and they're much cheaper than Teslas, and they're pretty much as good or better than Teslas, from what I've been told. So in Australia, and I've heard all through Europe as well, it's the same. Tesla has to compete on an even playing field with BYD. And what happened in Australia was Tesla no longer had the electric vehicle monopoly. They now had to compete. So Tesla was forced to lower the price of Teslas in Australia by about $15,000 just to compete with BYD. So the competition is good for the consumer. It brings down the prices of BYD and Tesla. Whereas in the US, the 30% tariff protects Tesla from the competition of BYD, and they monopolize more or less the market on electric vehicles in the US artificially. Now, you might say, well, fucking Tesla is a US company, and please, fucking Tesla, most of it's built in China. And then you might say, well, I would rather have the tariffs because I don't want Tesla competing with a Chinese company that can access cheap labor. And that would be good if the US didn't just spend, and Australia and every other fucking Western country didn't just spend the last 30 years forcing you and me and everyone to compete with cheap Chinese labor. That's why all the factories and Indian labor and Indian services and Chinese services forced us to compete with the Chinese, who are basically doing it at slave labor so they can maximize profits. So we were forced to compete against Chinese labor, but now the corporations don't want to compete against more efficient, better Chinese products, which also fucks us. Well, more the US. We have BYD. I go past it every day. There's cunts buying cars fucking left, right, and center there. So there's a little economics lesson for you. The 101 on tariffs. Anyway, that'll fucking do it for tonight. And I'll see you the fuck later.